Hey, what's going on, RotoBaller YouTube? Welcome to the Roto Revolution presented by RotoBaller. I'm Kyle Richardson, Senior Fantasy Analyst at RotoBaller.com. And tonight we are talking waiver wire. So we're going to be going over my must-owns headed into Week 11, and then also taking some questions as well as far as individuals that you might be interested in grabbing, or if you have some roster decisions that you need to make headed out of Week 10. That's what we're going to be talking about tonight. This episode is live right now, but it will be dropping later on as usual for you to view all week long, going during halftime of Sunday Night Football tonight. So if you have questions, start dropping them in the chat. I'll make sure to cover some players as well, and we'll get right into it. Normally, my co-host Jake Hubman is around to help me out, but he has a crazy work schedule this week, so I'll be running a one-man show. But don't worry, he will be back for wide receivers and running backs as always. But tonight we're talking waiver wire, strictly waiver wire. If you have waiver wire questions, drop them for me, and we'll talk about some of mine as well. Starting to come in a few here as far as questions go. Aaron Jones season absolutely is a guy that we've talked about a lot on this show. So if you are playing Aaron Jones, then good for you, because he had one heck of a day today. So congratulations, Chubb, as well. Jack Doyle, nope, not so much. So a few of the guys that we like here had good days. A few guys did not. That Colts game was crazy, though. Everybody but Doyle had a touchdown at the tight end position today. But we'll see what happens next week. I mean, Eric Ebron just a couple of weeks ago had the fourth most snaps played at tight end for the Colts. So anything can change on any given week, but he's having one heck of a season for sure. So let's start jumping right into this. Let's talk some waiver wire additions here real quick. We're going to first talk about wide receivers. Now, I write the waiver wire wide receiver article at RotoBaller.com. It drops every Monday morning, so feel free to get a little bit more of a detailed expansion there on some of these guys I'm going to be talking about. But the number one player that I want to bring up today for wide receivers is Anthony Miller. I don't know how we can't talk about him after the performance that he had against the Lions. Darius Slay being out probably helped that a little bit. That secondary is banged up, but Anthony Miller is a guy a lot of people were excited about all offseason long, and it looks like he's finally starting to break out here. He showed up. He had 122 receiving yards, 5 catches, and a touchdown. Miller, over his last 2 games, now has 10 receptions on 12 targets, and he's got a tough matchup against Minnesota in Week 11, but then he'll get the Lions again on Thanksgiving Day. So if you are in need of a wide receiver, I think Anthony Miller is a good guy to go grab this week. I think he has touchdown upside. Allen Robinson, even though he had even a little bit better of a day, he's too much of a roller coaster for me in that offense. And that offense is still, as a whole, a roller coaster. It seems like they have a great week and then an okay week, and then they seem to disappear, and then they're back again. So we'll see what happens. Minnesota could be a tough matchup, but when they get these Lions again, the offense is going to have that opportunity, especially if Slay isn't healthy by then, especially if they can't get things going by then. They could take the Lions down again with quite a few yards through the air. And Jake's boy, Mitch Magic, he'll be out there. He'll be out there still putting up decent numbers as well. So he's only 12% owned right now. Anthony Miller is only 12% owned. He was only 11% owned last week. So for the 1% of you that ran out there and grabbed him off the waiver wire, hopefully you started him, because if you did, he put you in a position to win this week. Another guy at wide receiver I need to bring up as well, Willie Snead. He's only 28% owned right now, and I think we need to even pay closer attention to him. I have mentioned him in my waiver wire article at least the last 2 weeks, if not longer now, especially in PPR leagues. He's only 28% owned, which is actually less than last week. I think he lost about 10% in his ownership share from last week. And coming up, he's got matchups against the Raiders, the Falcons, the Chiefs, and the Buccaneers. So if that doesn't scream fantasy potential to you, I don't know what else does. And we also, over the last 48 hours or so, have started to get news about Joe Flacco and what is going to happen with him the rest of the season. Coming out of this bye, Joe Flacco is injured. He's got a hip injury. They've talked about rest. They've talked about surgery. The only thing we know is that there is a good chance that Lamar Jackson could be starting at quarterback come next week in Week 11. Now, if that happens, Lamar Jackson was a prolific college quarterback. He did everything well in college, it seemed like. But the skill set scouts just don't think translates to the NFL. So we'll have to see how he translates. But the one thing that can help an NFL quarterback translate to the NFL better is having that solid option. It may be tight end or even in the slot. So Willie Snead could really be a guy that Lamar Jackson leans on, the short yardage, the quick routes, catch and go, everything like that. If Willie Snead is able to be that guy for Lamar Jackson with these matchups coming up, I don't think he has any kind of a ceiling, but he has such a safe floor that if you are in a pinch, if you are in a bind, if you just need someone and you are in a PPR league, Willie Snead is going to be a guy that can get you through the week fairly easily and put up potentially double-digit points. All he'll need is 5 to 6 catches to really put up double-digit points in PPR leagues, and you're set. If you can get that maybe from a flex position, and again, if you're hurting or if you need some help, maybe a wide receiver 3 spot, he's a guy to definitely look for. Let's look over here. Let's check real quick. Look at these comments. See what we have here. If anyone is asking a lot of questions about Nick Chubb and what you would offer in a trade for him, I'm not doing that. Diego Marquez, though, wants to know, someone dropped Mitch Trubisky, obvious number one waiver claim, right? I have Big Ben and Lamar Jackson. You know, Diego, honestly, if this is a one quarterback league, no, I'm not using a number one waiver claim on Mitchell Trubisky. If it's a super flex or a 2 QB league, then I'm even more surprised that he's on waivers. But in a 1 QB league, no, I'm not interested in that. Don't use a number one claim on him. Ugly Dude wants to know, Jarvis Landry, is he droppable? No, don't do that. The Browns seem like they're getting a little bit better. Baker Mayfield is getting better each week. Got to stay with Jarvis Landry. Hopefully he does pick it up soon. Again, fingers crossed. Andrea wants to know, should I drop Sutton for should I drop Sutton for Miller in standard formats? Yeah, I would. I like Miller's upside a little bit better than I do Sutton's. That's not going to be a popular opinion, but I do like Miller a little bit more right now. I think Sutton still has a ways to go, and I like, unfortunately, Miller's quarterback more than I like Sutton's. Give me Mitchell Trubisky over Case Keenum any day of the week right now. How am I feeling about Lamar Jackson? We'll talk about that because he's probably going to be a popular waiver claim. So Lamar Jackson, are we putting a claim in on him? In redraft, no. I'm not putting a claim on him in redraft. I think this is a guy that has less upside than what Joe Flacco had. Obviously, with his legs, that helps create a better opportunity for him, but I don't see a whole lot of that happening this season. I think it would be next season before we really see him take off. If you're in 2 QB or super flex leagues, then absolutely he's a guy that I'm taking an eye on or keeping an eye on, taking a waiver on. But as far as 1 QB leagues go, no, I'm not using a waiver wire claim on Lamar Jackson. If he's still there after waivers process and you really need a backup quarterback, which I personally don't carry backup quarterbacks, I stream on bye weeks for my starters, but if you really desperately need somebody, then try to pick him up. But I don't want to use a waiver claim in a 1 QB league on a quarterback, because if it's a 12-team league, more than likely you have a QB1 anyway on your roster already. A few other guys to talk about real quick as well. Also want to throw out there, scroll over here quick. Also want to throw out there another name here real quick, John Ross. John Ross is only 17% owned right now. The Bengals will be missing A.J. Green for a couple of games at least. And based on reports on Sunday morning, so if you were watching the live show this morning with Jake and I right here on RotoBaller YouTube, there was reports this morning that A.J. Green could be missing all the way into December. Now, if he is missing all the way into December, Tyler Boyd is your wide receiver 1 for the next few weeks. They need a wide receiver 2, and their wide receiver 2 is going to be John Ross. Didn't have a huge week today, but he did find the end zone, and he was a guy that we talked about having potential upside there. Now, is John Ross a guy that's going to win you weeks? No, he's not going to win you any weeks, but he's a guy that could find the end zone. Again, offer decent upside. He's a big play guy as well. My ticker says week 8 apparently too, so Jake is looking out for me there. So unfortunately, the bottom ticker didn't save for me, so my bad there. I apologize for the typo. But back to it here real quick. You know, John Ross is a guy, big play potential. We talk about those guys with big play potential on the show a lot and what can they offer us, and they're going to be a roller coaster most of the time, but all it takes is 2 or 3 catches, maybe even 1 catch to give you a return on value. John Ross is one of those guys that can stretch the field, be that big play guy, give you that return, and if he does, perfect. then at that point you've got everything that you need from him in any given week. So at only, what was he, 12% owned? Let me scroll back here real quick. He is 17% owned right now, so he's a guy that you could easily get your hands on this week if you need help. Another guy that we talked about coming into this week, Josh Doxson, at only 10% owned. I've already talked about Josh Doxson much more than I wanted to this season. He was not a guy I liked coming into the season, but injuries to Paul Richardson and Jamison Crowder have forced him into a really nice opportunity at this point. He has 2 touchdowns in his last 2 games, and he has 18 receptions for 188 yards over his last 5 games. Not great numbers, okay? Not anything that blows you away, not anything that screams run out and grab a guy who's only 10% owned right now, but he's a red zone threat. And in a standard league, if you need to stream a guy, if you need to grab a guy to get you through some injuries or bye weeks or whatever it may be, a red zone threat is a really good guy to have on your team, especially Josh Doxson. They are going to face some secondaries here over the next few weeks before the fantasy playoffs get here, before the end of the season is here, that really could allow Doxson into the red zone, could offer him more red zone opportunities as well. So Josh Doxson, I think, is a guy that I want to add over Maurice Harris. Maurice Harris is a guy that we also talked about a lot as well. Those 2 guys together, I'm taking Doxson over Harris right now because I think Doxson offers a much better upside in terms of jumping, getting into the end zone and getting you double-digit fantasy points each week. You probably get you double-digit points this week as well, depending on what kind of a format you play in. And if he did that, again, that's all you need from those guys sometimes. So those are a few of the guys at wide receiver that I'm looking at. Again, I apologize. The ticker at the bottom of the screen, I did forget to change that. My bad. Let me double check here again real quick. So C-Mac wants to know, should I pick up Tyler Lockett or Allen Robinson to replace Cooper Kupp? I want to say Tyler Lockett there. If it's a PPR league, I'm going to go Tyler Lockett. If it is a standard league, I'll take a shot at Allen Robinson. But yeah, both of those guys I would consider to replace Cooper Kupp, who as of today, as of right now, while this show is live here on Sunday night, sounds like he's got an ACL tear, which you don't like to see. Let me go back up here. Someone said keep Collins. Great schedule coming up. Oh, it's Jake. Jake is saying keep Collins. Yeah, we talked about him today. We both like him. Valdez Scantling, Jason King brings him up. He hasn't played, or I haven't seen the numbers on him recently. I didn't look them up prior to the show because he's a guy that I really have been vouching for several weeks now. So I'm trying to bring up some more names that I haven't really talked about. But if Marquez Valdez Scantling is still on your waiver wire, then 100%, if you have the number 1 waiver claim that week, you put it in for him. I don't have anything to really back that up right now. Again, I've talked about him so much over the last couple of weeks. You already know what I think about him, but he's a guy that I really like as a wide receiver 2 in Green Bay the rest of the season. Some maybe low-end wide receiver 2 upside the rest of the season as well. Wide receiver 3 probably at worst. So if you have an opportunity to get him, you get him. Victor wants to know, do you drop Enunwa? It depends on who's out there. Enunwa is a guy that I would consider potentially dropping, but if Sam Darnold can get back and get healthy, the Jets are headed into the bye week. As long as Darnold can get back and get healthy, Enunwa is healthy, I think Darnold will look to Enunwa again, so I don't want to pull the trigger too quickly, but if you need the space this week with him being on a bye, then yeah, go for it. Is Njoku reliable the rest of the season? Bertha Duang wants to know. Yeah, I think he is. He's a guy that I want to have. I want to invest in David Njoku as much as possible. He has that upside with Baker Mayfield. He has that upside in that offense. I want to continue buying Njoku as much as I can. So if you own him, you continue to hang on to him. So let's talk about some running backs here real quick as well. Some running backs that I want to bring up that are probably on your waiver wires. Again, everyone that we talk about on the waiver wire show is less than 50% owned. Ty Montgomery is only 14% owned right now. And this is another guy that I want to talk about because I just mentioned it with Willie Snead a couple of minutes ago. The Joe Flacco injury, not knowing what's going to happen. Is Lamar Jackson going to be the starter going forward for the Ravens? If he is, he needs to lean on some guys, and Ty Montgomery could be that pass-catching back that will replace Buck Allen because I'm not a Buck Allen fan. He's not that good of a player. He's not that good of a running back. He did get some red zone opportunities. He had some pass-catching opportunities. Ty Montgomery is much better than Buck Allen, though. So Ty Montgomery could be a guy that could really be leaned on for Lamar Jackson if that ends up happening. I like the running game in Baltimore if Lamar Jackson becomes the starting quarterback. I like the run pass options that they could be running, the RPOs. I like the creativity that they could get. I like that they're probably going to have to rely on Alex Collins a little bit more. If you're an Alex Collins truther like myself, you want to see some more volume for him. I think that comes with a Lamar Jackson starter as your quarterback. Same goes for Ty Montgomery. I think he ends up getting much more volume, much more opportunities as well. So Ty Montgomery at only 14% owned, I think is a guy that we need to consider adding off waivers coming out of their bye week here. I'm excited to see what they end up doing with him and Collins. He was inactive last week. Unfortunately, didn't get a chance to see him then. He was inactive, but he's going to be active going forward. My boy Rashad Penny. He just disappeared this year, but he comes back with a really big performance today, a huge performance. And he goes 12 carries, 108 yards, 1 touchdown. Everyone who was asking about Chris Davis today to try and replace Davis to replace Chris Carson. If you were looking at Davis in place of Carson, I said it today that Davis makes me nervous. He's not a guy that I want to play. He's not a guy that I want to start. You don't know what's going to happen with that backfield. And Davis, he did okay. But it was really Rashad Penny today that stole the show. So with Rashad Penny, he's got matchups with Green Bay and San Francisco twice coming up. Both of those could be opportunities for him to really break out if Chris Carson can get healthy and get back. So we'll see. And he's been up and down. His health has been an issue the last few weeks. Do we see that round 1 draft pick? Do we see that draft capital finally come out? And do we see them trust Rashad Penny to try and run away with the job here at the end of the season? Do they give him that opportunity? At only 14% owned, Rashad Penny might be a guy that clears waivers this week that you don't need to even use a claim on. But if you're really shallow at running back, I've talked to a lot of people on Twitter today that are really shallow at running back and need some help. Rashad Penny is a guy that I am willing to take a flyer on right now. Let me check. Going to double check the comments here real quick to see if anyone's got any questions about guys that they should be picking up or dropping. Diego, yeah, he brings it up. Mike Davis versus Rashad Penny going to be a hard choice come Thursday night if Carson sits. He says he thinks maybe he goes on IR soon. If that happens, I do really like Penny. Victor wants to know, is Penny a stream option this week? I think he has that potential. I'm going to keep an eye on Chris Carson throughout the week, so we need to see what happens with that. But we'll go forward from there. Mike Davis, keep or dump. I don't want to keep Mike Davis. I don't want anything to do with him. So I'm moving on from Mike Davis if I own him. Let's talk about another guy that was really the roller coaster of fantasy emotions this offseason. Because if you're a Derrick Henry truther, which I'm not, we probably haven't gotten along very much over the last year or so. I just haven't believed in Derrick Henry. And even when DeMarco Murray was cut and Derrick Henry seemed to be the guy, I cautioned fantasy owners in buying into him as being a running back 1. And in dynasty leagues, owners ran out trying to grab him as quickly as possible. And they invested a lot in him, and they invested picks and top players. And then Deion Lewis comes to town. And Derrick Henry hasn't done anything this year until now. So over the past last 3 games, Derrick Henry has 4 touchdowns. Deion Lewis has only averaged more than 4.0 yards per carry twice this season. So could we be seeing a changing of the guard? Believe it or not, Derrick Henry is only 48% owned in fantasy leagues right now. So there is a decent opportunity that if you need help at running back, Derrick Henry is still out there and available for you to take a shot at. If he is, take a shot at him. If you need help at running back, go grab him this week. He's not a guy that I like. He's not a guy that I want to rely on, but if he's going to offer me that touchdown upside every single week, he's a guy that you could potentially stream and get by on. And if Lewis cannot get better, this Titans offense every single week, a little bit at a time, seems to get a little better and a little better and a little better. Marcus Mariota seems to be getting better. They seem to be getting healthier. If that's happening, at any point in time, they could say, you know what, Deion Lewis, we're replacing you. It's going to be Derrick Henry from now on. And if that happens, you never know. He could offer you a solid running back 2 type potential the rest of the season. That hurts me to say a little bit because, again, I'm not a Derrick Henry truther, but I think we've reached the point where we really need to question whether or not Deion Lewis is a fantasy valuable starter, and if he's even valuable as a starter for the Titans. I could see them swinging to Derrick Henry here rather quickly in the next few weeks, next couple of weeks, next week even. And if that happens, then you need to keep an eye on Derrick Henry. You need to be playing him. Martin Mann says he'd rather pick up Royce Freeman than Henry. Well, at least Henry's healthy right now. Derrick Henry is healthy, so that's the one thing. C-Mac wants to know if you should keep Dion Lewis. I mean, yeah, you got to hold on to him, especially in PPR leagues. If it's standard leagues and you have a different opportunity, then yeah, maybe. But for PPR leagues, hold out just a little bit longer. We need to see when the changing of the guard happens. If you can get a hold of Derrick Henry to have them both, that's not that bad of an idea. Jack Evers wants to know, do you pick up Derrick Henry or Rashad Penny? I'd rather have Henry right now because of the touchdown potential. Again, not something I really thought I would say heading into the season, but something I'm saying right now based on what we see coming up. Again, if Chris Carson plays, then you have 3 running backs that could touch the ball in Seattle. We still don't know what they're going to do. They've said a lot of things this offseason and this season about in terms of what they'll do with their running backs, and it's never changed. So I'm saying I'm going to take Henry over Penny right now, but it's close. It is close for me. Let's see here. Derek L. wants to know if he should drop Traquan Smith for Kiki. Not with Demaryius Thomas in town and not with the QT hamstring issue. Kiki, do you love me, QT? So, yeah, with that, I'm not going to do it. I'm going to keep Traquan Smith for right now. Talked about this on Twitter a little bit ago as well with Traquan Smith because nothing this week. Absolutely nothing. No targets, no catches, no anything. So it wasn't there. It was not there for him this week. And because of that, owners are probably even further down on him right now than they were earlier. One of my arguments, though, was, yeah, he's not really being used in the offense right now, but there is always a chance for a big performance in a Drew Brees-led offense. Not only that, but for the rest of the season, the Saints get the Eagles, the Falcons, the Bucks, and the Steelers. 3 of those teams are in the top 5 of most points allowed to opposing wide receivers. There are still plenty of opportunities left for Traquan Smith to not only produce, but produce in a big fashion this year. So are you stashing him right now? If you are, I'm not holding on to, or I'm not going to go ahead and move on from him and dump him just yet. If you don't have him on your team and he's on waivers, see what happens. If you have an extra spot, if you have deeper benches, then he's a guy, again, that I will own because the opportunity with those teams that I just named, the opportunity is going to be there for him the rest of the season. I literally have Kyle saying, Kiki, do you love me without me there? Season-long mission accomplished. Yes, Jake, it is accomplished. That and getting me to say Mitch Magic, both of those things. Oh, man, Jake, hanging out in the chat from work. Always appreciate the support, Jake. It is a little awkward. I'm not going to lie. If it sounds a little off right now, I really apologize. I don't do the live streams on my own that often. I always have Jake there to go back and forth which is what I like to do. I don't really like just talking by myself for so long. So if it sounds a little off, I apologize, but I'll get better. Don't worry about it. Let's see. Yep, I did cave Will Money. I did do it. Martin Mann wants to know, Donta Foreman, is he on your radar? Yes, he is. He's actually next on my list of guys I want to bring up for running back. So he is 12% owned right now in fantasy football leagues. It looks like he's practicing. It looks like he could be active coming out of the bye. Miller had back-to-back 100-yard games in week 6 and 7, but if you take those 2 games out, if you take out the 2 games in which he rushed for 100 yards, then in those last 4 contests, the most he's averaged in any game is 3.5 yards per carry, including a game where he averaged under 2 yards per carry. So the people who are out there arguing the Achilles injury is not something that you can really come back from as a running back, I get that, and I think it can be difficult. But Donta Foreman doesn't need to come back and be a superstar. He just needs to come back and be better than Lamar Miller, and it really isn't that difficult to do. If they have him active and they have him out there and they slowly try to work him back into the fray, that's an offense with so much potential. You have to invest. You have to try and grab him. Top waiver edition? No. But if you need help at running back and you have a lower end waiver edition, the time to add him is now. If you haven't added him yet, then you need to add him now, because if he does come out and look well, you're not going to get him. If he plays well in his first game back and he becomes probably the top addition, because trust me, if he comes back and he plays well in his first game, he's going to become the top waiver wire pickup that week. you need to strike early. You need to get to him a little bit early. So yes, Donta Foreman is on my radar, and I think he should be on everyone else's radar as well. The GOAT, Kyle Mondo, I appreciate it, man. I really do. Thanks for tuning in. Let me see here real quick. Hit the like button. If you're watching right now, please hit the like button. We appreciate that on the show. Also, subscribe. If you're not subscribed to the channel, do that as well. Talking waiver wire right now. Later in the week, we have running back and wide receiver shows coming out with Jake. Jake and I will both be doing those together. And then Chris Mangano, Pierre Camus, two of our great RotoBaller producers here at RotoBaller. They will be doing tight ends and quarterbacks. So make sure you keep an eye out all week. And then, of course, the live show on Sundays as well. One more person to talk about really quick here. Closing in on 25 minutes. Want to keep this around about 30. Another guy, Jacquizz Rodgers. 0% owned, not owned in many leagues at all. 0%, maybe a few here and there depending on the platform, but at least through Yahoo, 0%. He's a pass catching back. And right now the Bucs really don't have a pass catching back. It's not Peyton Barber. That's not what he is. That's not who he is. Ronald Jones is hurt. He goes 8 catches for 102 yards this week. So put him on your radar. Don't go run and grab him. He's just a sneaky, deep option right now, a guy to keep an eye on. Peyton Barber has really tough matchups to end the year. The Panthers, the Saints, the Ravens, and the Cowboys, all fronts that could really limit Peyton Barber and what he does on the ground. So if that happens and these are games that become shootouts or high-scoring affairs, then at that point, Jacquizz Rodgers potentially steps back on the field and becomes that pass-catching back that could have decent PPR weeks. So in PPR leagues, keep an eye on Jacquizz Rodgers. Again, tough matchups for Peyton Barber to end the year. So I'm going to be looking at Rodgers to potentially help fill in and offer some of that PPR pass-catching value. Talking tight ends real quick as well. Chris Herndon, a guy we've talked about on this show a lot, only 13% owned. He's averaged 3 catches for 42 yards the last 5 games, and he also has 3 touchdowns over that span. The Jets, I'm going to head into the bye here again, but a guy to keep an eye on if you have like Rob Gronkowski and you continue to get burned by him every week. If you are a guy that had Tyler Eifert or Delaney Walker, or you've been circling in and out of tight ends all year long, Chris Herndon is a guy that I want to keep an eye on. Since week 5, Chris Herndon is the tight end 11 in PPR league. So since week 5, he is a tight end 1. Not saying much this year, but in a 12-team league, he's startable. Also, Jeff Heuerman from the Broncos, 5% owned. He's been the tight end 12 in PPR leagues since week 5. So again, these are 2 really under-the-radar, deep option, dark horses that you could grab at tight end. Jake and I talked about it today in terms of what do you do with Rob Gronkowski? Are you trying to trade? Are you trying to grab someone off waivers? These are 2 guys that are on your waivers. Absolutely, go ahead and do that. Let's see here real quick. If you're throwing out trade questions right now, hit me up on Twitter with trade questions. Might try to do a show later in the week, another live stream with some trade ideas. But right now we're only talking waiver wires. Victor wants to know thoughts on Sterling Shepard the rest of the season. Well, you know what? Sterling. Wait, are we talking about Sterling the tight end or Sterling Shepard? You gotta clarify there for me. I don't want to answer real quick here. I don't want to answer and not have the right guy there. So, ugly dude, Brady got benched because they were getting blown out. It's not because he's getting benched for good. VG LOL, pick up Montgomery for Josh Adams. Hold off on that. Again, we're recording right now during Monday Night Football. I don't know what the outcome is going to be until after the game is over. So Josh Adams, he looked really good actually in the first half with limited carry. So I'm holding on to Josh Adams for right now. I wouldn't go off and get rid of him. So at this point, so nobody drop Josh Adams right now. Hold on to Josh Adams. Thoughts on Sterling Shepard? Okay, yeah, Sterling Shepard. Well, I hope he doesn't have a good week this week because I need him to have a bad week so I can win a matchup. But Sterling Shepard, if Evan Ingram is in there and healthy, I don't like him as much. Now, Jake is a little bit different than me. Jake really likes Sterling Shepard, so make sure you hit him up on his channel or Twitter to get his thoughts as well. I'm not nearly as high on Sterling Shepard. If it's PPR, maybe a wide receiver 3 flex play, but nothing more than that for me. So covered a lot of guys here tonight, a lot of players you should keep your eye on headed into week 11. Again, just me doing the solo show tonight for waiver wires. This will be dropping, it's a live stream right now, but dropping as an actual episode here in a little bit after we get done with the live stream. So if you have more questions, if I didn't get your questions, please make sure you comment below. Either myself will answer them, Jake might jump in there and answer some too, and we have a lot of great writers here at RotoBaller that jump in and help answer the questions as well, because it's tough to keep up with the volume sometimes. So we really appreciate it. Again, if you're watching, like the video, subscribe. We always appreciate that. We're closing in on 9,000 subscribers. Would like to get there before Thanksgiving. Fingers crossed that would be a good Thanksgiving gift for us to get to 9,000 subscribers before then. Make sure you're also hitting up rotoballer.com this week for all of our waiver wire articles that will be dropping there. My wide receiver waiver wire article always drops on Monday mornings. And make sure you're checking out for start sit tools and everything else that you need for fantasy football. Thanks for tuning in tonight. Really appreciate it. Thanks for everyone for dropping your questions in, for interacting. We'll be doing this, doing some more live streams coming up maybe this week, if not early next week as well. But check out the running back, wide receivers, quarterbacks, and tight ends start sit videos, and we will make sure that we catch you on the next episode of the Roto Revolution. Have a great week, everyone. Talk to you later.